Shalom and welcome, Temple Talk, Israel National Radio, UniversalTorah.com. Today is the 27th day of the month of Shevat, 5774. It's also January 28th, 2014, and this week, Parashat Terumah. It is
Happy
time.
birthday, Rabbi.
What's that, Yitzchak?
Happy birthday, Rabbi.
Happy birthday.
Parashat Terumah is the birthday of the Temple Institute, is it not? Isn't this the birth of our raison d'etre?
One could look at it
Pardon
that
the
way.
French.
Absolutely. It's actually all coming together now, Parashat Terumah. It is time to build the tabernacle and then the holy temple. These are the last days of the month of Shevat. And in fact, this week, Friday, is the last day of the month. It's the first day of a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is Friday and Shabbat for the incoming month of Adar. But wait, before you get all excited and abandon yourself to masquerading, ribaldry, and all sorts of expressions of unmitigated, unbridled joy, it's actually the first Adar of 2 Adars. What does that mean exactly? Well, you see, this is actually very interesting. This is a leap year. And of course, Adar, the real Adar, is the 6th month if you're counting from Tishrei, and the last month if you're counting from Nisan. And it is a month of 29 days. Now, in a leap year, Adar, it's preceded by the 30-day intercalary month of Adar Aleph. And of course, there is a statement in the Mishnah that tells us that Purim is celebrated in the 2nd Adar in a leap year. And by all means and by all counts, Adar Aleph, Adar Rishon, Adar 1, is considered to be an extra month, right? And thus, we have this interesting conundrum that a person who is born in Adar during a non-leap year would celebrate his birthday in Adar 2 during a leap year. But if someone was born in either Adar, in either Adar, right, in a leap year, he would always celebrate his birthday during Adar in a non-leap year. In other words, if someone is born on the 30th of the first Adar, he would celebrate his birthday on the 1st of Nisan in a non-leap year.
Whoa.
Because Adar is a non-leap year. In a non-leap year, it has only 29 days. The point is this. This is a very interesting phenomenon, the first Adar, right? And so, since we know that Adar, the real Adar, is considered to be a very auspicious time, you know, you're supposed to, if a Jew, for example, has this is actually mentioned in Halakha and is testimony and evidence to the abrasive at best and life-threatening at worst relations between Jews and non-Jews throughout the millennia. There's a whole concept in Halakha that a Jew who has some sort of a legal action, court case against a non-Jew, if at all possible, should postpone it to Adar, because Adar is a lucky month for the Jewish people, because the sign of the zodiac is the fish, which doesn't have an ayin hara, and because of Moshe Rabbeinu, and of course because of the miracle of Purim. Adar is a time manifestation of miracles. So interestingly, in the world of halakha, there is a well-known question about, since we have a statement that our sages make, which is Mishenichnas Adar marbim b'simcha, that when Adar enters, we increase in our joy, because Adar is such an auspicious month. There's a question, okay, now in a leap year, when we have an extra month of Adar, are both months special? Does the month of Adar Aleph, the first month, also count for this special quality, or is it only the 2nd Adar, which is the real Adar, Adar Sheni, which is when we celebrate Purim? In other words, Yitzchak, what we're really asking is, and this is interesting, it's really kind of cool because it's reflected in the multifaceted and amazing world of the formation of halakha throughout the centuries. What really is the essence and the nature of this first month of Adar? Because it's kind of like an enigma, because the 2nd Adar is the one that counts.
A phantom month.
It is.
Shadow month.
The 2nd month of Adar is the one that, in fact, when the 14th and the 15th, the days of Purim, roll around in the first month of Adar, we do not say the prayers associated with din, like, as we don't say tachana. In other words, there are minor reflections in the prayers that this is kind of like a minor holiday, but it's kind of like an image or a reflection or a shadow, like you said, of a holiday, because in another month on this day, the real Purim will be falling out. But this month is like, it's not really the time. So what is it exactly? So this is really interesting, and there's a whole debate between, let's say, people like the Levush and the Kedushat Levi, about what the nature of the first Adar is. And actually, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, he actually maintains that just as the 12 months correspond to the 12 signs, and they also correspond to the 12 tribes of Israel, which is a concept that we have alluded to many times based on the Ari and, of course, the teaching in the Bnei Yissaschar. The month of Adar, says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, which is under the sign of Pisces, corresponds to Yosef HaTzadik, who is blessed like fish, and who, like fish, are free from the clutches of Ayin Hara. Now, Yosef was unique among Yaakov's sons in that his two sons, Menashe and Ephraim, each formed a separate tribe, right? Mm-hmm. And accordingly, says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, in a leap year, the 2 months of Adar correspond to the two sons of Yosef, Menashe and Ephraim, and as such, both are represented by...
And the younger is greater than
the sign of the dog.
Older.
And thus, according to Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, according to his view, both Adar Rishon and Adar Sheni share the special properties of the month of Adar. And indeed, says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, Adar Rishon is also an auspicious time for success in court,
so
or for example, with the State Department.
With Menashe, because he was the younger of the two, correct? Ephraim was born first, but Menashe would be a more numerous, and Adar Rishon has one more day.
I didn't see that exactly, but it certainly could be. But I find all of this kind of interesting and very fascinating, and kind of funny at the same time. Like, it can't be that we're in a period of time that has no definition, like you said, a phantom time.
It's a Rishimu. A Rishimu.
Exactly. We need a whole few hours to explain what you just said. Unless you'd like to right now.
I don't have a few hours.
So indeed, it seems like a mystical bend. It seems like we're in some sort of a warp or some sort of a wrinkle, some sort of a portal, because it's not the real Adar yet, but yet, as the Holy Rabbi Levi Yitzchak points out, it has that quality already. And yes, you could face off against some foreign elements and be blessed with auspicious mazal. So whether it's a court or whether it's the State Department, let's say this month there's all sorts of things cooking, right? But I have a different way of looking at it altogether. I want to look at it through the eyes of Simcha, through the eyes of Hashem's promise to us. And I say, you know what? This is a special time for doubling your pleasure and doubling your fun. Like this. Here, let's see.
Double the pleasure, double the fun. Now I understand your earlier question, Rabbi.
Well,
your earlier inquiry.
Listen, what I'm trying to say is, it seems to me that instead of looking at this as a time of question, or a time of dubious distinction, or just practice for the real true Adar Sheni, I feel it's like as if Hashem gave us an extra period of the year to work on righting all the wrongs, and to work on fixing all the things that we need to fix. It's like we have a bonus. We have a bonus in time. We actually have like a special gift of this month that is like just
2 for 1.
It's great. I mean, I can't imagine a better divine gift.
A double pleasure's waiting for you. A double pleasure for double income. A double great feeling making you realize double is
Wow, Rabbi, I am seeing Adar Rishon in a whole new light, like never before. Okay, very good.
auspicious.
Okay, Rabbi.
I'm not vouchsafing for the kashrut of Wrigley's gum, but
This is not an endorsement.
no, but we all remember that from so many years ago. Double your pleasure, double your fun. So I'm just thinking to myself that it's interesting how there's, because of everything the Jewish people have been through throughout the years, we find these kind of concepts reflected in the formation and in the analysis of various legal situations. But what about the deeper, more basic foundation of what is this? What is Hashem telling us? What is the nature of this phenomena? And so, double your pleasure, double your fun, and more than that, it's like Hashem is giving us an opportunity out of nowhere to have a running start before HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem Rosh HaChodeshim, before Exodus 12, before the beginning of the year. We have the opportunity now to really fix more and more. That's how I'm looking at it. It's
Double our efforts.
It's above time and space. It's like there's some sort of cosmic hiccup here, and we have an extra opportunity to do all the things that have to be done.
The 13th month. 13, which is Ahava, love.
It can't possibly get better than that.
The gematria of Echad, 1. Yeah, and this is the month that we begin to talk about the Mishkan, building the Tabernacle, building the Holy Temple. So it is exceptionally propitious that as this topic comes up in our yearly Torah reading, that we have extra time to concentrate on it and to talk about it and to investigate it and to work on it to make it happen.
It seems so clear, when we come to Parashat Terumah, and of course people say to us, "Oh, you must be so happy. It's your parsha." I feel like saying, "What? It's not your parsha? Like what? It's not a specialty item. It is the heart of the whole Torah." And it seems to me that it would be very hard to ignore what's going on here as far as the trajectory. It's like that's a word that you used to use all the time on Temple Talk. I don't know. I don't recall you using it in the past few years. But it once was a very important word to you. Did you have a falling out with that word?
It's a beautiful word. I love to hear it rolling off of your lips, Rabbi.
And you.
Trajectory.
The trajectory of the Jewish people ever since their inception, ever since Egypt, ever since Sinai, and now everything is coming to a head. But what's the program? What's the goal? It seems to me that since the rest of the Torah from this point on is going to be completely focused and fixated on the building of the sanctuary and the service in the sanctuary, and in fact, the remaining parshiot now of the book of Exodus are all about building this sanctuary. And then, of course, the heart of the Torah that is protected like the most precious possession, because there's 2 in front and 2 in the back, as Chazal say. The heart of the Torah, Sefer Vayikra, Leviticus, is all about the manual of how to bring Hashem's presence into the world in the tabernacle / sanctuary. So what I want to ask you now is, Yitzchak, how do people marginalize and minimalize the issues to such an extent that they are able to completely sidestep it as a Torah commandment and say, you know what, it's all very interesting ancient history, but it has nothing to do with now. And the beauty of these parshiot, and the beauty of the program of Hashem's deliverance of the children of Israel from Egypt and the building of the tabernacle now is all reflected in the word which is the title of this parsha, Terumah. And what does Terumah really mean? What is the root of that word?
Laharim, to lift up.
To raise up, to lift up. And Hashem says, speak to the children of Israel that they would take from me a portion, is how I see here in this art scroll. It's translated, but it really means that they raise up. They raise up to me. And the whole concept of the Beit HaMikdash, which of course began humbly in the desert under these modest traveling conditions in its collapsible miniature form, it began as the Mishkan, and later it became the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. It's all about lifting up and raising up human consciousness, all the forces of the world together, and the purpose of life to be connected all the time to Hashem's presence and Hashem's will. And it's not like a burden or something extra. It is the whole program of, and especially the way that we've been explaining it lately, and especially the way of plugging it in now, this parsha, to what we've had the past few weeks. It is the perpetuation and the eternalization of the reality of Sinai. What's the reality of Sinai? That everybody, from the greatest to the smallest, understood with such perfection and clarity and beyond any doubt that Hashem is here and that Hashem is all there is. Don't degrade Hashem by saying that He's God or that Hashem is the God. It's that Hashem is everything. That's what God means. That there's only one reality, and everyone saw that so clearly. And then the idea of building this place of holiness, which shows us that not every place is equal and not everything is equal, and that there are ways of being able to channel our consciousness for Hashem's sake, because again, the temple isn't something that He needs. It's not something that He has to have. He really could care less, I'm sure, for Himself. It's not about Him. It's about us. Everything, all the mitzvot in the Torah are Hashem's advice to us about how we can stay on this level that He intended us to live on. So my question is, when it comes to this part of the Torah, which now takes over, I mean, it really overrides everything else, and it becomes the absolute central theme, and it's just hard to deny that, There's no other mitzvah or set of mitzvot in the entire Torah about which we as a people have succeeded in mythologizing. And again, I must say this, I must try to maintain my compassion. Yes, I am browbeaten, crestfallen, weary from the abuse that I feel radiating, the scorn from people who say, why do you deal with something which is obviously not meant literally? Well, how come everything else in the Torah is meant literally? It sure is literal that you're not allowed to murder someone. It sure is literal that you're supposed to keep Shabbat. Why is this not literal? And I'm talking about people that are basically observant and God-fearing. When it comes to this issue, they have managed to strip the idea of any simple interpretation, and instead they give it all sorts of metaphor and allegory. I mean, there are rabbis today, great rabbis, who, when it comes to Parashat Terumah, here I'm thinking of a very great rabbi who gives a weekly lecture, a weekly public lecture, and he's well known for his brilliant insights into Torah. And when it comes to Parashat Terumah, he speaks about the sanctity of the kotel. In other words, the most that he's able to do with Parashat Terumah is doreshit, is to come up with a whole drasha about the sanctity of the kotel, because he can't do anything with the kelim, not with the vessels, not with the concept. So he talks about the sanctity of the kotel, because as far as he's concerned, the vision that the Parashot are giving us is not practical. It's not really for us. It's something that when Mashiach comes, He's going to take care of it, or worse yet, it's going to materialize from heaven. And indeed, many of our people they look at this whole topic now, the topic of the establishment of the Holy Temple, they look at it as either irrelevant, because we've just evolved so much and we've changed so much, and it can't be that that's what Hashem meant.
Archaic.
Or they look at it that, okay, well, it's obviously impossible for us, and so Mashiach is going to build it. Or the worse yet, and I say the worse yet because those that subscribe to this idea are basically denying the entire Torah, because this is such a foreign idea. They say that it will come down from heaven. And so let's look at each group. Now, the ones who say that it's not relevant, well, what do I tell you when we know that we have a principle that every one of the mitzvot is for all time, and they don't change, And it might not be convenient, and it might feel like a threat to one's comfort zone or lifestyle, but Hashem meant it, and nothing changes. It might be more modest and more prudent and productive for us to ask ourselves why we feel that way, and how is it that we feel that we have the right to interpret this away. But certainly to those who consider it to be irrelevant, I have to ask them why they consider other parts of the Torah to be relevant. And if they're consistent and they don't think any of it is relevant, at least I can deal with that.
The groupings that you've grouped Israel into in terms of their opinions, beliefs, reminds me of the groups that at the Red Sea, the Sea of Reeds, who some felt go back to Egypt. I guess they're the ones who say it's not relevant. Or, that's going to come from, and some say cry to God, just pray. Maybe they're the ones who feel it's going to come from heaven. Of course, the ones who say build are the ones who are ready to go into the sea up to their nostrils. But apparently it's not a unique phenomenon when it comes to arriving at the threshold of a new era, that there are those who just want to stay within their comfort zone, like you mentioned a minute ago.
And it's not even an accusation. It's not unique, and it's not an accusation that people get stuck. We all get stuck. But if we believe that the Torah is eternal, and we believe that we have a mission and a destiny, and we believe that we are completely connected to Hashem, then we have to look deeper. The group that believes that Mashiach is going to come and rebuild it, and by the way, everything that we're talking about here, I'm speaking very briefly and in a matter of seconds about topics that require hours. And Bezrat Hashem, God willing, this year we're very excited that we have a book that's going to be coming out here in Israel, published by a very prestigious publisher, that's going to be unprecedented work in the English language about this entire topic, that will cite all of the sources, because when you're talking about this topic, it's important to cite the sources of Torah knowledge that relate to these things, because you can't just decide something like this because of personal opinion or because of emotion. It has to do with what our sages actually teach us and what the Torah actually teaches. And this is very instructive to try to understand how this happened and what it is that we think as a people. And yet, at the same time, thank God, we are very happy that there is a tremendous awakening, and there are more and more of the people of Israel that are waking up to the reality of the temple, which is that it is indeed a commandment for us to fulfill in every generation. We'll be right back. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk, Israel National Radio, UniversalTorah.com, and now also on our Temple Institute YouTube channel. Today, the 27th day of the month of Shevat, 5774, this Friday and Shabbat, the beginning of Rosh Chodesh, the new month of Adar I, which we talked about in the first half of our show. Today, also the 28th day of the month of January, 2014. Rabbi, you were in the middle of teaching us something about the different perspectives, some may be legitimate, some maybe not legitimate, about building a holy temple today.
It's just kind of funny because there doesn't seem to be any topic like this in the whole Torah and in the whole realm of Jewish thought that evokes such strong positions, opinions, and I would even say opposition, which is really interesting. Actually, there is one other mitzvah, and I consider these two commandments to be twins, to be sister commandments. And that, of course, the other commandment that evokes such strong opinion and which is explained away in so many different ways is the commandment of living in Israel. Mm-hmm. And I think that both commandments are an expression of tremendous personal integrity and responsibility, and show how connected a person really is to the soul, the heart of Torah. And I think that both commandments are a tremendous upheaval and threat to a person's lifestyle. Building the temple and having life centered around going to the temple is a massive change, and so is leaving the exile behind. And because of the unique history of the Jewish people, and because of the difficulty that we've been through just in surviving as a people and the insular effect that that's had on us societally, I think that we've come up with a very odd type of idiosyncratic, even maybe subconscious series of defense mechanisms. And therefore, when it comes to this all-encompassing, life-changing view of reality, the building of the temple, which, again, as I said in the beginning, how could it just be marginalized or minimalized when it occupies, from this point on, the center of the whole Torah? But yet, so many are able to look at it as being either obsolete or something that is symbolic or something that is completely out of our hands in a divine way. But the thing is, when you begin to really analyze systematically these issues and begin to talk to people and begin to teach about it, then people's comfort zones really get threatened because threads begin to unravel. And we begin to see that our conception of these important ideas in Jewish thought are actually all very, very confused. For example, when it comes to those people who believe in all sincerity that Mashiach is going to come and build the temple, and Yitzchak, we've talked about this in the past. In fact, we have a 10-part series, I think, on Light to the Nations, a 10-part video series about this. But again, there's nothing like putting something in writing, and so God willing, this year, when this work is published, there will be ample opportunity for people to be able to learn in depth the true sources of Torah wisdom that detail these ideas. But when it comes to those who believe that Mashiach is going to come and build the temple, the problem with that really is that then we really need to begin discussing, well, who is Mashiach? Who is the Messiah, and what is he supposed to do, and what is his role, and what is it that people are expecting? And we begin to find that people have an idea of Mashiach which is not exactly taught by the sages of Israel, because as soon as they believe that, well, he has to do it, because how could we possibly get past this geopolitical stalemate? We need a divine intervention. They're already telling us something about what they think of Mashiach, which is not a Jewish thought, because Mashiach is not divine. He's a very great man. He's a very accomplished leader. He's the greatest accomplished leader, but he isn't divine. And in fact, the commandment of building the temple, Maimonides teaches us, is a commandment that is given to all of Israel, like all of the commandments. And Maimonides says very, very clearly in another source, in the letter on persecution, he writes very clearly that none of the commandments are in any way dependent on Mashiach to do them. It's not his job to come and tell us, okay, now it's time to do this particular commandment, or I'm going to do this for you. But rather, all of the commandments were given to Israel to fulfill, regardless of when the Mashiach comes. And this is, again, an extremely complex topic with very detailed and beautiful and illuminating sources that the sages discuss this over the generations. And then there's the category of those who look at the entire subject as being so out of this world, so completely unrealistic, that they believe that Hashem himself, as opposed to every other commandment in the Torah, which of course the very definition of a commandment is that Hashem gives it to us and we fulfill it, but these people look at this, that Hashem is going to bring the temple in a miraculous way, and that is going to descend fully appointed and made in heaven, and they feel that they have sources for this, and those sources really are very widely misunderstood. They need to be examined, because the truth is that no such concept exists or could possibly exist in Torah thought. Of course, there are miracles. People say, of course, but what about the splitting of the sea? Well, you know what? That's not a mitzvah. When Hashem doesn't say in Exodus 25:8, I will bring the temple down, he says, and you shall make for me a sanctuary, and they shall make for me a sanctuary. And indeed, one of the greatest ironies about this whole topic is throughout these next Torah portions, there are literally hundreds of expressions of action, of doing, of making. Make the menorah, make the priestly garments, ta'aseh, ta'asu, va'asita, va'asu. And these are all expressions of doing. And so this topic, more than any other, people have this idea that that's not what it means at all, because it can't be, because we can't do it, because who told you to do it, because that was times were different then, and all sorts of issues about which there is really, on an academic level, on a scholarly level, there is so much to say. There are so many levels of understanding the solutions for what seems to be an impasse. But again, this is a complex subject. But the long and the short of it is that this is Hashem's plan for allowing mankind to live on a level of unity and harmony and understanding of what the purpose of life really is. It is the secret of our survival. It is the secret of who we are as a people. And it's actually the secret of all of humanity, as the prophets of Israel tell us. And that's the vision of who we are, and it can't be denied or excused or in any way sidestepped. And the beauty of it is that it is an expression of the hope of mankind. And exactly, Terumah is an expression of uplifting. And since we don't believe that it is irrelevant, and we don't believe that it is the purview of the Mashiach, but that rather we are all responsible for building it, just like we are all responsible for keeping the entire Torah. And since we don't believe that it is going to mystically appear, because we all must be responsible for our fate, thus the Temple Institute was founded with the goal of fulfilling Hashem's will, helping to prepare the Jewish people for the renewal of temple service. There were other precedents throughout history of attempts to rebuild the temple. There are documented examples. This is not something that was born in a vacuum, and it's not archaic. It is truly the centerpiece of Jewish life, and actually of the balance of all mankind in pursuing the goal of existence. So this is why the Temple Institute was formed, and this week's Parsha begins with Hashem instructing Moshe that he should speak to the children of Israel, and he should say to them that they should take from me a portion from every man whose heart motivates him. You shall take my portion. And this is a very interesting expression, asher yidvenu libo, whose heart motivates him. So that seems to indicate that not everyone's heart is naturally inclined, but that Moshe should speak to those who seem to spiritually identify with the idea, although we know that every one of Israel is responsible. And the whole idea of how certain things in the temple are made from gold, and certain from silver, and certain from copper, etc. I mean, there are many levels of Kabbalistic knowledge as to what these materials represent, and how they all function together, and the effect that they have cosmically on creation when the temple service is in sync. But on a very simple level, what the Torah is really telling us is that nothing is ours. Because the very paragon, symbolically, of a possession is gold and silver. And these are the things that can drive a person from the world. And these are the things about which we become the most obsessive, that it's mine. And Hashem is saying, take those things, which, by the way, I gave you, because I told you to take it out of Egypt, and I put your grace upon the people in Egypt. And so Hashem is basically saying, right back then in the prototype of all of this in the desert, Hashem is saying, take that which I gave you, and give it back to me. And thus, laharim, elevate everything, because you have to be able to understand where everything is coming from. And this is one of the facets of the fixing of human nature. But in any event, this is an opportunity for Yitzchak, for you and I, to do something that we rarely do. We rarely actually tell our listeners how important it is to us that they support the work of the Temple Institute. And I think the reason that we don't do that more often and in a more frontal manner is because we're very sensitive about soliciting. We don't consider this to be tzedakah. We don't consider this to be like asking for charity or anything like that, because as a matter of fact, as the Torah points out here in Parashat Terumah, this is the commandment of God for every person. And more than that, it cannot be compared to any other good cause, because it is the basis of life, and it is the soul of the rectification of Hashem's honor, because consistently and throughout the Torah and throughout Jewish history, the secret of Hashem's honor, he makes it very clear, is the Holy Temple, standing on the Temple Mount, which is the very seat of creation and the rectification of creation. So by asking for financial aid, I believe that we actually are giving people an opportunity to choose, because everything is about choice, to choose to be part of the most important project in Jewish history, which is the restoration of Hashem's honor. And we do that very rarely, but I think that it is time. Parashat Terumah is really the classic traditional time for an appeal, a classic appeal for the work of the Temple Institute. The Temple Institute is the mother of all temple consciousness of our generations. Over 1 million people, well over 1 million people. In fact, I think it's coming close to 1.5 million people have come to the headquarters of the Temple Institute throughout the years. It is 27 years old. It has precipitated and facilitated a total awakening and paradigm shift of consciousness regarding this topic. It has made the concept of the reality of the promise of the rebuilding of the Holy Temple a reality. And it if anything, has succeeded in our time of catapulting the temple from a Wizard of Oz, Never Never Land, mythological thing to something which is palpable and tangible and within reach. It's the work of the Temple Institute, which not only prepares the vessels that are actually kosher for use in the Holy Temple, and we are making them specifically, halachically, for the purpose of using in the temple, which, by the way, according to Maimonides, is considered the first stage of actually building the temple. But besides that, the goal of the Institute is other areas of preparation of consciousness as well, education, publication, complex research, and every aspect and facet of what can be done now to change the facts on the ground, whether it's our activism, our education, our research and preparation, all towards the goal of rebuilding the Holy Temple, not waiting for Mashiach to build it. We welcome him. We are waiting just as you're waiting, but we're not using him as an excuse. We're not waiting for it to come down from heaven, because Hashem does not keep the mitzvot for us. He expects us to keep them. And so this really is important, and I must say, we at your service provide a great deal of knowledge, information, spiritual succor, and everything that we possibly can do for our brethren and for the world throughout the year. And very little do we actually ask of our listeners. But if you appreciate the quality programming, and the study tools and the research and the accomplishments of the Temple Institute, please consider helping us financially, because we are in great need of your support, which forms the basis of our ability to continue with this holy work.
If you are interested, if your heart is motivated to help the Temple Institute, in our efforts to facilitate the rebuilding of the Holy Temple, then you can go to our webpage or our Facebook page. There are links to a donate page, and donations are accepted via credit card or check. If you're looking for a recognition for tax purposes, there's an address you can send your check to. In that case, all the options there, PayPal, even electronic transfer. There's no obstacles in the way to making a Terumah, a donation to the Temple Institute. And of course, the word Terumah, which we mentioned, means to raise up. It means to raise oneself up through the act of being torem, of giving toward the building of the Holy Temple. So I see, Rabbi, that's sort of in itself a form of avodah, a form of the service in the Holy Temple. It's almost like an offering itself. So making a Terumah, a donation to the Temple Institute, really is to put yourself in the thick of it and to be part of the revolution that's taking place. I just want to mention, Rabbi, we keep talking about it, and you said the verse in English, but in Hebrew, the verse is so short and sweet, so succinct. V'asuli mikdash, they shall make for me a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'tocham, and I will dwell amongst them. So there you have the commandment, and the reason, which is that then I will dwell amongst them. Who's them? It's us, the world. God's presence will be here on earth if we build this sanctuary.
But do we want it? That's really the whole question, and all of human history boils down to this moment, the moment of that verse of 25:8. Do we want Hashem to be here or not? Because he tells us very clearly that that's the goal. And so maybe no wonder there's such opposition to building the temple, because that's what Hashem is telling us exactly.
But I want to say it's the goal, but it's placed here, right after Sinai. And there's still first half of the book of Exodus, way before the 3 books that are to follow. It could have been placed at the very end of Deuteronomy, right before Moses, went from this world. It could have been presented as, this is the cherry on top. This is the icing on the cake. This is the last thing you'll do in this world, kind of thing. I think that's what people have turned it into. When we're good enough, when we've reached that point, spiritual level, we'll be ready to do it. No, it's here at the beginning, and it's a prerequisite for the fulfillment of all the commandments. And you know what? In the same parsha, just a few verses later, it says, "V'hakimota et mishkan kamishpato asher haraeta bahar," and you complete it. You erected the tabernacle according to commandment, as I showed you. It didn't go on forever. It wasn't, something to think about and to talk about and to debate. They were instructed. They did it. Chick-chock. It's not the most complicated thing in the world. It can be done. It's doable.
And again, I think a lot of it has to do with that first verse. Asher yitvenu libo, from every man whose heart motivates him. And that's what we're looking for. And of course, it is a 501c3, as you'll see on the donate link to the Temple Institute's award-winning inimitable website. It's also a number 46 category tax deduction in the State of Israel, fully recognized, a number of options. Yitzchak, I want to say something. Last week, we talked about the new publication, the brochure that's being distributed on the Temple Mount, apparently by the Waqf, which rewrites history once again and has some very extreme examples of total revisionist history and outright obscene lie and a mockery of history. And it's on our website, and it's on the Facebook page. There was an article on Israel National News last week about how our own Rabbi Ariel, the founder of the Temple Institute, the great paratrooper and the greater scholar, how he is up in arms, and he made a statement. Why is it that the other rabbis, his colleagues, why are they not taking to the streets, and why are they not protesting what seems to be the government's plan that has been exposed, which is basically to divide the holy places of Jerusalem between the Christians and the Muslims, and giving the Jews basically the right to stand and bang their heads against the wall at the Kotel and mourn for the Holy Temple. And of course, the Muslims are going to be given the Temple Mount, God forbid, according to the Kerry plan. I'm sorry, Mr.Magoo's plan. So, and one of the things about this booklet is that it claims the Western Wall for Islam. And it says, Solomon was just a Muslim prophet, and it claims the Western Wall for Islam. And it says that it's part of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but the temple never stood here at all. I think that part of the nefarious and insidious and invidious and devious planning of this is that if they really are going to be going for total recognized sovereignty over the Temple Mount, they could be seen as making a very grand gesture to us by allowing us to have the Western Wall after all, after having claimed it. It's like they're saying, well, you know what, the truth is it's all ours, but you could have the Western Wall. What I'm trying to say is I think this booklet is also part of the plan. Because the problem, again, and here, this is the time to talk about it, it's Parashat Terumah. And I mentioned that, great rabbis who just assume that Parashat Terumah, talks about the Kotel, because everything else is just totally ethereal and above us. The problem is that the world Jewry seems to care about one thing more than anything else, and that is the ability to be able to stand at the Kotel to cry for the temple. Not the Temple Mount, not the possibility of actually making it into a reality, but if, God forbid, the Kotel would be taken from us, what would we do? We will be able, you're going to take back everything, you're going to take back all of Jerusalem, you're going to take back the Temple Mount, but you're going to allow us to have the Kotel? Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, thank goodness. And this is the problem. This is the problem that we have to understand, that it's time to move on. It's time to move on from the Kotel and claim that which Hashem has given to us and which Hashem is waiting for us to welcome him into the world. Just like you said, the verse says, and they shall make for me a sanctuary and I will dwell among you. And that is exactly what the Holy Temple is all about. And it's not only for Israel, it's about the whole world. It's the true New World Order. It's the true spring. It's Hashem's spring to establish the Holy Temple and allow the divine light to be again welcomed in the world.
So please take us up on it. Accept our invitation to be part of this historic, revolutionary change, upgrade for the world, for all humanity, building the Holy Temple. Thank you for being with us. Temple Talk.